When I was gone, there was a lot of people didn't know that when I'm out last year, it was Lance Berkman who sat in for me, and I only miss maybe about 6 to 9 games throughout the course of a season. And recently, I was out for the Detroit Tigers series, and Jeff Bagwell stepped in for me. And what was funny about this is I'm trying to figure out how do I unfold this, because it was kind of interesting to hear, what fans had to say, and then it was interesting to hear what my producer had to say, because I didn't have cell service where I was at in Mexico. We had kind of spotty Wi-Fi service that was in and out every once in a while. But purposely, when I first got into Mexico, I turned my phone off because I was like, okay, like you said, Tuttle, you're just going to unplug, get off the grid, enjoy family, enjoy friends. And I did that. So the first night was great. Wake up the next morning and I'm like, okay, I want to know how the Astros did. Did they win? Who did what? What was the score? All that kind of stuff. And my phone is going absolutely nuts when I turn it on. And it hooks on the Wi-Fi, and I'm getting text messages, I'm getting Twitter alerts, I'm getting Instagram alerts. Everything's going crazy. And I find out that Jeff Bagwell has gone into complete roast mode on the broadcast. And he's like, finally got that California clown out of the booth, which I didn't appreciate, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I'm going, okay, that's just Baggy being Baggy. And then he proceeds to, go into my board short choices, and he's going into other stuff. He's starting to get personal. I'm going, man, this is really weird. But fans are kind of like, Blummer, what'd you do to make Baggy so mad? Why'd you piss him off? But, he proceeded to go on roast Biggio and roast some other guys and have some pretty colorful banter. And I texted him and I was like, bro, I go, you need to call the game. Fans are a little concerned about our relationship now because you're getting into me so hard. So I was like, you might want to focus on the game a little bit. And they get rained out on Friday, play a doubleheader Saturday. So he had to broadcast a doubleheader, and then he did the game Sunday. And in talking to my producer when I got back, he kind of gave me the first game was a little worrisome because when Baggy gets on, he gets a little loose. He starts to say some things, and he starts to push the envelope a little bit. And he told me that first game, he was kind of had his finger on the button, like, am I going to have to cut the broadcast? Am I going to have to cut his mic? And they moved on to the game, the second and third game, the fourth game. And my producer goes, man, after that first game, he was awesome. And I was like, good. Because I told him, I go, bro, you need to talk about baseball. I go, everybody loves that you rag me constantly, which is wonderful. But at the same time, you got to be able to go out there and broadcast that game. So Tuttle, if you were listening to a ball game, and I mean, when I'm in the booth with Baggy, it's great because we go back and forth. We do tell some stories, and it's a little more, friendly fodder than it is actual just, I'm going to toast this guy and, talk about his sexuality and talk about his board short choices and thank God he's not here and call him a clown, But when we're together, it's a little more subdued. But is that enjoyable to you, or how do you feel about the locker room kind of creeping into the broadcast a little bit? I mean, it's fun for a bit, but I don't know if it would last throughout the course of a season.
No, I think I brought this up before. It's really interesting, but yeah, Blummer, Bagwell, you could get Biggio in there too, and Berkman, but the killer bees in the booth too. I mean, nobody can be a color guy unless they have the last name B and played for the Astros, and I just think that's
That's a
wild
good
in
point.
itself, right? Like there's nobody else. They can't bring in anybody else. No, I think it's interesting, and you know this very well. It's one thing to say, hey, my buddy Blummer, I do the podcast with, he's da 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 da. When, if you're ragging somebody in the clubhouse, like they've got the opportunity to come back. And that's what you're saying in the booth too. When you and Bagwell both do the broadcast together and you have TK in the middle or whomever in the middle, it's a nice little like, hey, banter back and forth. And then if you push the envelope, then he can push the envelope back. But, it's almost like, indefensible, right? If you're going to start, getting on somebody about how short their board shorts are, the fact that they're pink because you're from California or whatever. I didn't listen to the broadcast, but you have
You're
no
close.
chance to defend yourself. And so the way you defended yourself, like you said, is Twitter's blowing up, is to text them and say, hey, dude, call the game. And I think that's what this podcast is for, right? We get to tell some stories, maybe some off-color stuff. But, when you're doing the broadcast and somebody's listening, maybe they're not watching the TV. They want to hear what's going on. And there's certainly a subtle difference between radio, broadcast, and television. but sometimes less is more. But I think, there's definitely a fork in the road there. Let's make sure we're calling the game, getting the pertinent information out there, and let's do it in an entertaining way. And I think that's what happens with you and TK over time is you have this nice relationship. He knows when you're on, and you know when he's on, and if he needs to give you more space, all that stuff. You play off each other, and I think what Bagwell was doing obviously was not. You didn't have a chance to defend yourself, but you certainly, he wasn't there to call the game. He was just, firing missiles without any sort of repercussion. So.
Yeah, it would probably be way more interesting if I actually was in the booth to be able to fire back a little bit. But he's always highly entertaining, and I think that's what his appeal is he is a little maybe off color sometimes, but he's brutally honest about what's going on. And I think he eventually, I listened to the game on Sunday, and I thought he did a great job. It's always good to get another perspective, and Baggy definitely brings that to the nice. To any call he's on. And being an ex-Hall of Famer, he's going to see the game differently.